going on, you guys? A lot of times when people are looking at buying a business, they want to find ones that have seller financing available. And I know that this seems like a good thing, but I'm here to tell you that at best, seller financing is mostly a joke, and at worst, it's a complete and total scam. And there are some reasons for this, so you're gonna have to bear with me for just a second, but I promise at the end of this video, this will all make sense. Now, the reason this comes up is someone had recently asked me how often we see FedEx contractors that are selling their business offer financing. So the answer to that is occasionally, but it's a lot more valuable to go a little bit deeper and also address the underlying part of this question, which is the desire for seller financing. And again, by the end of this video, you're going to understand why I don't care about seller financing, and oftentimes it's even a bad thing. So the first thing to do with any type of question like this is to refine it. Like when we say seller financing, do we mean 1%? Do we mean 100%? Like what exactly do we mean when we say seller financing? So the way to think about this is to separate into three categories that I've seen a lot of times throughout the years. And the first category is the sellers that will offer 5, 10, maybe 15%. Now, this isn't really helping you. This is them getting their business sold. And a lot of times when we see this 10% seller financing, it's just to get a loan through underwriting, because a lot of the banks want to see the sellers hold some sort of note. It also can contribute to the down payment amount that is required by the buyer. And so it is really just a method of them getting their business sold, as opposed to them having faith in the business and they're really sticking their neck out. Like, no, 10%, please. A lot of times you could just negotiate 10% less anyway, and they would accept it. So like, are you really getting any sort of benefit from this 10% note? Not really. But again, if it can help it get through underwriting, this is sort of like the most harmless of the three situations. It gets worse from here. The second situation is whenever we see some amount like 20, 30, 40%. Now, this is where a lot of people start to think like, wow, seller's really got some faith in his business. Wow, he's really sticking his neck out. Wow, he's got some skin in the game. No, he doesn't. Most often, the seller has simply overpriced their business by 40. And whenever you give them the down payment, that's what you should have just ended with. And now all the amount that you're paying beyond that is just gravy for the seller. He's just getting gravy. And so the point is that a lot of times when we see the larger amounts, they're just overpriced to begin with. And you probably should have just paid whatever the down payment was and stopped. No more loan. But they get to seem like they're a real good guy. Oh man, we offer seller financing. Wow, we're really sticking our neck out there. No, they're not. They're not doing you any favors. The third is the worst situation. This is where I start to see like 60, 80, sometimes full seller financing, 100%. And this is where the buy a business gurus pop up, because then they say, hey, you can buy a business with no money down, 100% seller financing. These, especially in the FedEx world, are typically junk, because what's going to happen here is that either the situation is that whenever you come into this business, you're going to realize it's either not cash flowing, or B, it's about to get terminated if it's like a FedEx route. So what happens is you get in there and you've given a, let's say 30% down payment. The seller's financing 70% of this purchase price, very reasonably priced too, and then the contract doesn't renew. They get terminated. And then the seller says, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe that happened. Oh, I just had no idea. You know, hey man, I don't know the future. You can't blame me for that. Look, I'll just cancel the rest of that loan, but thank you for your 30% down payment. I really appreciate that. You know, hey, sometimes businesses don't work out, man. I'm really sorry about that. And it's like, wait a minute, this guy, this seller would have gotten 0 if he held on to his business, but he got 30% from you and got to seem like a great guy because he offered 70% financing. Whenever we see 0% down, 100% seller financing, sellers just hoping to get any amount of payments whatsoever. A lot of times it's cash flow negative. A lot of times they have liens. There's all sorts of problems. Those are an issue all in themselves. Now, are there situations where the seller offers 70% financing at a fairly priced business and then it's going to go great and perfectly? I'm sure. But let's look at the reality. Is that a common thing? Hell no. So when we look at the common situations of seller financing, we see it somewhere between 5 and 15%, which doesn't really help. It just helps you get the loan closed. The second situation is whenever we start to see a little bit more, 20, 40%. A lot of times those are just overpriced. And the third situation is when we see 60, 80, 100%, and those are almost always a disaster. So again, I'm sure there are situations where sellers offer financing and it's actually a helpful amount of percentage for a good cash flowing business. It's reasonably priced, but more often than not, we see the situations that I just described. So this is really important, especially in the FedEx world, where sometimes you don't even want a business that is 100% seller financing. You don't even want it if it's free. And I talk about that in this video here, where you don't even want free routes sometimes. And I think that this will really illustrate that not all routes are created equal. So anyway, hopefully this helps. Like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.